This is Amud Yomi Gemara Berachos Daf Samuch Amud Aleph. We're holding on the top of Samuch Amud Aleph. We just finished a second lashon as to when one says Shechiyanu. We concluded that the Gemara said Rav Huna, the second lashon, says only when shaloi kana v'chazer v'kaina. But if you buy the same item again, you do not make a Shechiyanu. And Rav Yochanan says even kana v'chazer v'kaina, you make Shechiyanu again. Says the Gemara Mechlal. If you have the item and you bought it again, divrei hakol, according to the second lashon, would yes have to make a Shechiyanu. Meisvei asked the Gemara. It says in Abraisa, Banabayis Chadash. 6 lines down, someone built a new house, and he never had a house similar to it. Or he has to make Shechiyanu. Continues the Braisa that if he did have one similar to it, Rav Yehuda Imer Bengach Ubengach Sarach Levarich. So says the Gemara, what is the machlokes and how does this relate to the two Lashonos that we just had? It is good according to Lishnei Kama. The machlokes Rav Huna and Rav Yochanan. Why? Because Rav Huna Kirameir, Rav Yochanan, Rav Yehuda mimics the machlokes perfectly. Meaning that this machlokes Amoraim is going to mimic perfectly the machlokes Tanaim. Elo l'lishna brasra b'shlam Rav Huna kireb Yehuda, that when you have a similar item and you buy it again, you don't make a Shechiyanu. El Rav Yochanan, who says you make a bracha, irregardless if you ever had this. The Amar Kiman, who does he hold like? Like your Rav Meir, like Rav Yehuda. Amar Lecha Rav Yochanan, as we wrap up the narrow lines on Samuch Amud Aleph, Hu Adin, Dil Rav Yehuda, Kan v'chaz v'kan nam yisach levarich. Really, Rav Yehuda holds if you buy it again, you have to make a bracha. So why in this brisa did Rav Yehuda differentiate between the brisa was honing in specifically on the sheet of Rav Meir. The Asked the Gemara the classical kasha on the last arrow line. So why did the brisa say it the flip way? Argue in the case where you buy it again, the ein tzarich levarich, l'idea koyach Rav Yehuda, and classically the Gemara answers koyach the teira adif. Says the Gemara on the first very wide line, mevarich al ra, you have to make a bracha on the ra of dayin ha-emes. Says the Gemara, hechi dami, what is the case? Ki going for example, the shakal bid ga va'ara, if a flood sweeps through someone's land, avagav the tavuli today, even though eventually this is going to be good for him. The maskara sitan v'shivcha. Why? Because the land doesn't get sediment and eventually improve. Hashta miyarahi. But lamaisa, right now, this is not good for him. And therefore, he makes the bracha of dayin emes. This is a raw me'ein tava, that there's some level of tava to it. And then we have the flip side. The Tudat says the Gemara, says the Gemara, Valataiva me'ein hara. Hechidami, what is this case? On the second very wide line, someone finds something that's lost. Avagav deroli didei. It's bad for him. Because the king hears taxes go up. Hashtamiyatava, but l'maisa right now it's good. You got all the kashi. Because it's too late. Says the Gemara. What does that mean? Tefillah doesn't help. The famous story. Leah davens, and her son becomes a girl, and she calls him Dina. What does the pasuk mean? Leah dan the kavachimer, and she said, she danced. There are 12 shvatim. She already had 6. And there's 4 from the shvachis. If the child inside him, he said Dina is a boy. Kivas Hashvachos. Keachas, excuse me, Hashvachos. Rachel's not going to even be like one of the Shvachos. Miyad Nevcha Labas. Immediately what happens is this boy turns into a girl. Keachas Hashvachos. 1 second, I read that wrong. So ask the Gemara, why are you telling me he doesn't have to daven? Ein maskira meisim. Says the Gemara, he asked a kasha from Leah. That's an ace. The Iba is saying my second Harris Maisa Leah b'techar b'yoyim avos within the first 40 days. And of course, Kiditanya, as we learned in Abraisa, Shloishi Amisha in the first 3 days after one has relations. And one wants to have a child. They should be mevakish from HaKadosh Baruch Hu that the zera should not putrefy, but rather it should take hold, rather it should fertilize. From 30 to 40, from 3 to 40, excuse me, yivakish rachim sheizachar. From 40 till 3 months, you don't want to have a miscarriage. From 3 to 6, well, 2 different types of miscarriage, sandal and then an ephel. You should have a good birth. Says the Gemara. So Leah was only within the first 40 days. That's when she was able to daven for a zachar. Ask Gemara, Mimahani Rachami. Wait, now we have the flip question. But does Rachman during the first 40 days help? Ish Mazriat Chila. The man is Mazriat Chila Yodel Nekeva. Isha Mizras Chila. If the woman is Mazras, then what? Yolez Zachar. Shtam Isha Kizet Yodel Zachar. So it sounds like at the time of conception, at the time of the relations, it's already decided whether it'll be Zachar or Nekeva. So what's the point of the tefillah? Answers the Gemara. That's when tefillah will help. And of course, because one doesn't know, therefore he's allowed to daven for the first 40 days. We continue about 20 lines down, the 2 dots, and he hears screaming in the city, he should not daven, because again, it's a tefillah shav. Why is it a tefillah shav? Because again, it's too late. Says the Gemara. Tan Rabbanan, Meisabil Azakin, Baba Dervish, I'm a cold Savachabahir. Hil Azakin is coming and he hears screaming. Oh, Mary says, Muftachani Shezebtach base. This is clearly not within my house. Palava Kasvaimer, Mishmaroli, Yanachin, Liboy, Batuach Bashem. Amarav, Kolechi Darashta, Didarshta, Laikra. However you darsh this pasuk, you can darshan either front to back or back to front. Of bad, there should be no fear. Why? Because he has batachin. Or the opposite. Says the Gemara, Hu Talmida. There was a story of a Talmud. Davik Azal Basi, the Vishmal Rav Yesi Beshuka was going behind the Vishmal Rav Yesi in the Shuk. Chazit Kamavchen, and Rav Shmuel noticed that the Talmud was mafchid, Talmud was anxious. Amar Lei Shmuel said to him, Chatat, you're a sinner. T'chseh Pachad HaBitzian Chatoim, as the Pasuk says, these sinners are afraid of Sion. Amar Lei, the Talmud responded, what do you mean? It sounds good, you should be always mefachid. Amar Lei, who but different Torah ksev. Should be mefachid, that you might forget words of Torah, but not to be mefachid on other areas, because that shows that one is a Baal Aveira. Another story, Yehuda bar Nasa, Vishagov Azal Basidir of Nuna. They're going behind her. That person you wants to bring suffering upon himself. It's good to be mefachid. Again, we continue with the 2 dots. About 20 lines to the bottom, or 15 lines. The 2 dots, first line is likrach. You should daven twice, and Ben Avazai said he should daven 4 times. Tanu Rabbana B'Kniyas Asam. What is the tefillah when you enter into the city? Yiraten Milfanecha Hashem Lekasha Dechli Sidin Likrach Zelish Shalom. I should enter in Shalom. Nechnas, once he enters, Amar, he should say, My Dani Lefanecha Hashem Lekasha Nasati Likrach Zelish Shalom. You already brought me with Shalom Bikesh Latzeis. Meaning he thanks Hashem, so he davens to come in b'shalom. Once he comes in, he says, Maida, thank you, Hashem. When he wants to leave Amr again, Hashem, allow me to leave in Shalom. Yatzav Amr, when he leaves, he should say, thank you, Hashem, for allowing me to have left Shalom. Just as you have let me leave Shalom. Shalim me towards peace, uphold me and place me. Amar Amasna, Lo Shanu Ela Bekrach Shein Donin V'Hargin Bai. One only says such a tefillah in a city in which they do not judge and then execute someone. We're not worried, it's not such a danger, and therefore one does not have to daven when entering into such a city, but rather just make sure not to commit a crime, says Rashi. Of course, this is going back in a nostalgic world in which they would actually execute people, etc. And therefore, in all cities, one should daven, as you never know what could happen. Tanu Rabbanan says the Gemara Nichlas the Beis HaMercha Tzaimer. When one enters the bathhouse, he says, "You should spare me from danger and from its like. May death be a kapara." Says the Gemara that the bathhouse, and Rashi explains over here, I mean, it's not a matter to laugh about, but Rashi says the bathhouse was built over a pit, and therefore there's a real sakana that it might fall through, and therefore such a tefillah was in order. Amar Abaye, Leile Minishach. Says Abaye, no, don't say such a tefillah. Don't liftach bumay l'satan. Says Abaye, such a tefillah would sound like you're opening yourself up to the Satan. Amar Rav Yosef, my crowd, Chsev, Kimakis Taminu, La Mayim Taminu, Maya Hadu Navi, so does Navi respond? Shemud Varashem Kisina Sidaim. Kinafing my Amar, what do you do when you leave the bathhouse? Concludes the Gemara, Amar Avacha, Mayim Nechashem Lekai, Shesaltani Mina'ar, that you saved me from the fire. And we end with one story of Ravu, all the base Bani, he went to a bathhouse. Ifchas Beibani Mitu saying, guess what? The bathhouse gave away underneath him, and he fell into the pit. Tisrachshli Nisa Balamaisa. For Ravavua, a nace happened. Kamal Amud, and he was left standing on a pillar. Shazim Meya V'chad Gavri V'chad Avri, and he held on to 100 men with one live. They all grabbed hold of him. Sounds like right out of a cartoon. Amar Ravavua said, Hainu Ravacha, this is the danger that Ravacha was referring to when he said you should daven when you enter to the bathhouse. We'll stop over here. I'll pick it up from the Makiz Dam in the next year of B'siyata Dishmaya.